Despite all the safety features in place on modern ships, we still hear reports of people falling overboard. Most commonly from ferries and cruise ships, I guess because there are more people on them, but it does happen on cargo ships too. Of course, the priority is always to get the casualty back, but that's easier said than done. Before even considering a rescue, you first need to know that a person has fallen overboard. Some ships have sensors, but normally the fastest way is if a witness either sees or hears them fall. In your pre-departure safety briefing, you'll be told the textbook response: throw a life ring, keep pointing at the person in the water, shout "man overboard" and get someone to call the ship's bridge. If you're on my ship, I don't care what it takes, get a life ring straight in the water, but if you can't find one then throw whatever you can. Shout "man overboard" and if anyone else is there, get them to call the bridge. Otherwise, if you're alone, call the ship's emergency number or even activate a manual call point. Just do whatever it takes to get the crew's attention. Ideally, you'll point at the person in the water and don't take your eyes off them. It's easy to stay focused as they move further away, but the moment you take your eyes away, you'll struggle to find them again. But let's be realistic about this. A slow cruise ship will be travelling at 10 knots, that's 5 metres per second. Within 1 minute, that's 300 metres, and within 5 minutes, it's a mile. If the message doesn't get to the bridge fast, no amount of pointing is going to save them. Anyway, as soon as the bridge becomes aware, the duty officer will take 3 immediate actions. They'll record the position, release the life ring, and sound the whistle. Recording the position gives you a reference point to easily return to, and is done by pressing the man overboard button on the ship's GPS or electronic chart. Releasing a life ring not only gives the casualty something to grab, but it also has a smoke signal attached which will billow out bright smoke for at least 15 minutes. Also, as the ring floats, it is subject to the same set and drift as the person in the water, making it an ideal datum for a potential search. As for the whistle, the signal for a man overboard is 3 prolonged blasts, corresponding with the Morse code Oscar. It alerts the crew on our vessel and any nearby vessels to the situation, automatically summoning all officers to the bridge. More importantly though, it should be heard by the person in the water, giving a vital boost to their morale. For those of you studying for your exams, you'll also be told to put the rudder hard over towards the side that the person has fallen. If they fall on the port side, putting your rudder hard to port will swing your stern away from them, keeping them away from the propellers. It's a nice idea in theory, but when you think of the practicalities, a lot of people say it's a bit pointless unless the bridge actually observed them fall. Otherwise, by the time someone sees them fall, phones the bridge, the officer asks which side they fell, then orders the helm over, the steering pumps physically turn the rudder, and the ship's stern starts to move, you're looking maybe 20 seconds minimum. A slow-moving cruise ship will have travelled over 100 metres in that time, so unless they fell off near the bow, they will have already passed clear astern, and that's the very best case scenario. Putting the rudder immediately hard over does serve another purpose though. It is the perfect start for an emergency man overboard manoeuvre, the Williamson Turn. You put your rudder hard over one way, then when you're 60 degrees off your initial course, you put your rudder hard over the other way. By the time you return to the reciprocal of your initial course, you should be retracing your track, theoretically running towards the man overboard. The opposite of a Williamson turn is the Scharnov Turn, but that returns you slightly further down your track, so it's not so useful if the casualty has only just fallen. For completeness, the third manoeuvre is the Anderson Turn, which will bring you back to the point you started, but you'll be facing the wrong way if you need to retrace your track. Of course, all these initial actions and manoeuvres are great if somebody actually saw the casualty fall, but a lot of man overboard situations actually begin as a missing person case. When a missing person is reported, again, the bridge will immediately note the time and position of the report while the crew try to locate the person on board. If they're not found, you do your best to estimate what time they might have fallen using witnesses, CCTV or other clues. From that, you go back in the ship's log to determine the most likely position that they fell overboard. Anyway, no matter whether you saw them fall or you calculated the most likely position, you now have a place to start searching. Ideally, you'll just spot the casualty and bring them back on board using the ship's rescue boat, but it's rarely that simple. Usually, you'll end up having to search before you can rescue. Now, we can't cover everything in this video, but we can look at some of the basic search patterns that a ship might use. If you start from the known position, probably the smoke float that you dropped from the bridge wing, you can do what's known as an expanding square search. Every 2 legs, you expand the square slightly, turning 90 degrees at each corner. It's only really effective with a relatively accurate position and a relatively small search area. Next, we have the sector search, which is great for searching in a relatively small circular area. Cover the entire length of the search area in the first pass, then turn 120 degrees and travel for half the length of your first leg. You then turn 120 degrees again and repeat the process until you've travelled the entire circle. Once complete, you can offset your search by 60 degrees and try again. Over a larger area, you might start with a track line search, literally going up and down your past track. This would probably be done with an aircraft as it's a great quick first pass looking for a man overboard. After that, you might look at a parallel sweep search where you track up and down across a wide area. Multiple vessels can even be used in tandem to cover multiple sweeps at once. The width of the tracks will depend on things like the visibility and is calculated depending on how easy it would be to spot the casualty. The person in the water is incredibly hard to see, so you would likely have a sweep width of less than half a mile. Of course, assuming you raise the alarm with other vessels and the Coast Guard, there would hopefully be multiple ships all looking for the person in the water. They would keep looking as long as there is a reasonable chance of survival. The search and rescue manual carried on board ships gives a table of likely survival times in different temperatures. With no external help, you might use that to help decide when to stand down your search, but the thing is, with modern emergency communications, it likely won't be the ship's call to make. Although the person fell overboard from your vessel, once you communicate the situation to the Coast Guard, a National Rescue Coordination Centre will take charge and your ship actually becomes a search asset. This does lead to a little confusion sometimes when it comes to the initial radio communication. When a person goes overboard, do you transmit a mayday? After all, a person's life is in danger, so it should carry a mayday priority, but your ship is not the one in danger. Technically, you transmit a mayday relay on behalf of the person who is in the water. But remember, when someone's life is at stake, getting the message through is the priority. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.